bringing you the absolute best stories across the ag industry. You're now tuning into How I Built This Ag Business, an original series by Ag Swag.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of How I Built This Ag Business. Today we have Craig Yunker and Christian Yunker with CY Farms out of Western New York on the show today. They started way back when in 1951 with a 25 cow dairy operation. And now they have over 6,000 acres of crops, including corn, beans, wheat, barley, alfalfa, cabbage, onions, green peas, and spinach. On top of all this, they also have a commercial sod business, and they also have a custom dairy raising business serving over 4,000 head of cattle. I think we're going to learn a little more about that. I saw some stuff online and wasn't quite sure exactly what you guys did, but welcome you to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so Craig, your dad started the farm. I guess let's just start there with how this whole operation got started.
Yeah, so my father was the younger brother of, he had an older brother that stayed on the home farm. So my father, after college, was, looking for a place to start his own, and his college roommate was a real estate guy, and he found this farm. Dad couldn't afford to buy the 200 acres. It was a bigger farm. He was looking for a 75, 80 acre farm. And this was a 200 acre farm, and he couldn't afford to buy it. So he rented it with an option to purchase. They set the option price at $23,000, and Dad ran with that option for 15, 16 years before he ever exercised it, He basically spent his capital on cows and equipment and rented some more acreage, and let that option ride on the home farm until I was 16 before he finally exercised the option. So he was milking about 60 cows when I went off to college. And my brother and I grew up milking cows before and after school.
And then when is the big expansion for dairy?
Well, that's when I came back from college is when we built a freestall barn and built a parlor and bought 2 herds of cows and ramped it up. We were about 300 cows then, milking 3 times a day. And then I don't know if you remember the dairy herd buyout back in the 80s. When government, they had supported the price of milk by buying butter and powder, and they had so much butter and powder in storehouses that they offered a contract to buy out dairymen. The contract was a bid. You'd bid to go into the contract. You couldn't milk cows for 5 years. You couldn't sell your cows for dairy. You could sell them for beef. We bid pretty high. Didn't expect to get taken, but got taken. So we were out of the dairy business, and so we transitioned the farm from that dairy into cash crops. So we started growing corn and wheat and soybeans, and realized we wanted some more high value crops and started adding some vegetables. That was in 86, around there. Christian joined us here in what year?
Oh wait.
He went to college and then worked for Farm Credit for 6 years before he came home. And we bought the turf farm in the late 90s, and Ag Cooperative Agway had started this heifer raising operation. They wanted to demonstrate to New York farmers how to raise heifers the right way. So they were looking for a place to build a dairy heifer replacement facility. We leased them a site, and they built the facility when Agway filed bankruptcy, and we bought the operation from Agway. So that's how we ended up with two other businesses. We bought a sod farm that was in trouble financially, and we bought the Heifer facility out of bankruptcy. So we ended up in three businesses instead of one.
I like it. I like it. Finding, yeah, having some dry powder around when other people get in trouble a little bit pays off sometimes, for sure. So
We like the, you know, when we left the dairy business, we had good soils, good fertility from the manure from the milk and herd. And after 10 years of no cow manure, we were missing it. And the heifer operation allowed us to work forages, alfalfa, into our crop rotation, and also gave us nutrients from the animals, and both of those things provided synergies for our vegetable cash crop operation.
do a lot of farms up there where you guys are at, and you said you were in the western part of New York, do they grow a large variety of crops like you guys do, or are you kind of different in that?
They do. It's a pretty diversified area here. The western northwestern part of the state where we have is this is the largest ag base in New York. There's certainly a lot of dairy operations around here, but as you get up closer to the lake, there's a lot of diversified.
Fruit.
There's fruit up along the lake, and then there's a lot of vegetables just south of that, and then you got to go, and then you start to get into even higher and higher dairy cow numbers as you kind of move south into the state. But yeah, there's definitely similar operations like us that grow quite a few. There's a lot of processing vegetables growing around here. There's several processors here, so and we also sit on a pretty decent sized pocket of peat or muck lands that it's good sized onion growing region right here too. So we have one of the largest onion growers as a neighbor here on the East Coast next to us, and we grow a few onions as well.
Did you grow direct for the end user? Do you grow direct for a company that's buying direct from you, or do you have to find a way to market that at the end of the year?
We pack onions, but we don't go direct to supermarkets. We go to a jobber that would distribute to supermarkets. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were growing specifically for one company that was having you guys grow, or no, you just.
No, our onions would show up, you know, and up and down the East Coast.
A lot of the guy, I have a few producers up in Canada that grow small baby tomatoes or some of the other tomatoes but they'll direct, you know, they're like have a contract kind of already locked in with someone that's making tomato sauce or some type of Italian sauce or something. And, you know,
we grew tomatoes for a while back in the late 80s, early 90s for a processor in Pennsylvania. We grew a couple hundred acres of tomatoes for a food processor. It was an interesting business.
Yeah, it seems like they're wild. The price swings are extremely volatile and wild for sure.
Yeah, well, you know, onions, it's all open market. We don't have any contracts. Okay. And you know, because of there's no demand elasticity for onions. You know, people buy the same number of onions when they go to the supermarket, whether they're cheap or expensive. They just, you know, you need one or two onions and that's it. So when the supply is short, onions will get really high priced. And when they're long, they get pretty cheap. So there's very volatile market in the onion business.
How do you guys hedge that?
Other crops. It's the diversity, you know.
No, I hear you. You really can't hedge the actual onion prices though, right?
No, they tried it. They had onions on the futures market for 1 or 2 years, and a bunch of growers tried to corner the market, and it raised hell. And
it actually happened right in our town here back in what, the 60s.
Yeah, and it's there were actually Congress passed a law that said there can be no futures market in onions, and The only crop that they've ever passed that law, because these guys tried to corner the market.
Oh boy, right up there in your area. That's funny. Too funny.
So
But
how much,
we consider ourselves, our mix of crops a lot like Michigan, you know?
Yeah, that's
Michigan has the Great Lakes, and they have fruit and grain and dairy and vegetables, and the same part, this part of New York State's the same way.
yeah, it's pretty up there for sure.
when the dairy went out of business and you guys started growing crops, how many acres you guys start with?
Oh, I think we're farming about 400 acres on the 300 cows, roughly, you know. Then we started renting some more farms. We bought an operation that had a small grain facility, and we hired the guy, and we picked up all of his ground and his rented ground. Same way we got in the onion business. We bought an onion farm, and the guy came to work for us and sort of taught us how to grow onions.
Same with the turf business.
Same with the turf business. We, bought the turf farm and hired the two sons. One helped us with the production. The other guy was the sales guy, and that's how we got in the turf business.
What's ground go for up in your guys' neck of the woods? We don't have a lot of reference.
You're probably anywhere from, on the low end now would be 3,500 up to 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 probably.
We bought 3 parcels this year, right? Three different blocks. We bought some muck that was like $10,000 an acre. And then we just bought a farm that was about $5,000 an acre. And the
Byron was about
Byron
6,200.
6,200.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the range, you know.
What will those? What's that? What will those yields say APH on corn?
170, 180.
Wow, well, that's really good. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, ground down here, some of it that's bringing that. Now we're up and it's stupid, silly money. So I mean, we heard some guys.
You just saw that sale in Nebraska for 20.
What the heck? I'm like, some farmers got in a serious bidding war there. It sounds like
The math. How do you make the math work there?
I don't even have a clue.
Several generations. It's going to take several.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time for sure. Yeah, we had some friends selling some ground out by us, and they're wanting 15, 16,000 an acre. And I mean, I'm just like, how does that pencil? And I told Jordan, I said, well, it certainly doesn't pencil for mom and I. It might pencil for you and your family or your kids maybe one day, but I don't, man, I just don't know. It seems crazy what some of these prices are. And then the rents are getting silly again. Everybody, a lot of people paying over $400 and $500 again on rents in some of these areas. I'm just like, wow, I don't know how that works if prices break. It's going to be crazy. So we're going to find out, I guess, especially these higher interest rates. You got to worry about if you're going to lose some demand. I know those people, I mean, a lot of people are still paying cash and being cash buyers on some of this ground, but boy, when there's other alternatives for your money now, and you get 4, 5, 6% in other areas, I don't know. I mean, what do you're a former farm credit guy. What do you think's going to happen here with the rates going higher?
It's certainly going to put pressure on the industry. There's no doubt about it. It's going to put pressure on investment and capital. And, I don't know how long. I mean, the interest rate hikes, we got to stabilize this thing at some point here, don't we?
The Fed meets this week, right?
Yeah.
What would you say interest rates are going to do here in the next 12 to 18 months?
I think they creep higher. I mean, it feels like to me, we said several months back, some of my buddies and big hedge fund traders thought they had peaked, and I still feel like they're going to have to creep higher because I don't see how you slow inflation on the wage growth side. It doesn't seem like we're going to get that tapered back anytime soon. And food, like housing and food inflation don't feel like they're going to backtick a whole lot. So.
Well, right now we have an inverted yield curve, right? And,
Yep.
and that means a recession's coming, generally speaking.
I agree.
I think we got to have a recession to get this thing tamed.
Yeah, you would have to believe so. I mean, until you slow that wage inflation down and some of the employment, I don't see how you no one's going to taper off on buying. I mean, when we go out and about in the last few months, it doesn't feel like anything's slowed down to us, does it to you guys up there? I mean, people seem like they're still out spending.
You know, we worry about the housing market with being in the turf sod business and construction, but it hasn't slowed down this. We haven't seen it slow down. It's still pretty brisk.
I'm starting to hear about it though. I mean, like that interest rate pressure is definitely affecting home sales and prices and buyers for sure. I mean, it's penciling differently now, those interest rates.
Now, the builders seem like they're definitely slowing. I have a few buddies that own different subcontracting companies. One guy's a gutter guy, owns a big gutter business, and one owns a big concrete foundation business. And yeah, they say right now, I mean, they're finishing up some of the last homes that were a lot of the bigger builders had been doing. And they said, man, after that, it looks pretty dry out there on the horizon for new construction anyway, at least in our neck of the woods now. One of the guys that works for us, had his area. Hell, they listed it for $780 and got like $850 2 days later. I mean, just a couple weeks ago. So I mean, I think it's pockets are still hot. You know, maybe some things are cooling down. But yeah, I was interested in what your guys' thoughts were being in that turf business. You kind of have to forecast a little bit out on that new construction stuff.
Well, so we seed our inventory here in August, but we're seeding inventory for 2 years from now. So we're seeding inventory for 2024. So what's the market going to be in 2024? It's definitely it's a challenge to manage because sod inventory is expensive to maintain. So as we're deciding how many acres to put in, it's a challenge to forecast 2 years out for sure.
Do you guys mainly sell to builders, all your turf, or kind of
builders? You know, a lot of municipalities, school districts, athletic fields, golf courses. The landscapers are the largest of the customer base, whether it's homes or commercial type jobs. But a lot of municipal work or towns putting in baseball fields or, you know, again, school districts or whatever. Those are the larger jobs.
So are you guys like going out actively selling your turf, or are you kind of just letting people come to you?
No, we have a sales manager, and you know, we sell, you know.
How many acres is the turf business? What's that consist of? Is that quite a bit?
About 300.
300. Wow. Yeah. It's a good chunk. Yeah, that keeps them busy.
It's definitely the highest value crop we have on a per acre basis for sure.
So what sets you apart in the turf business or with other people up there? Is it pricing, or you guys just have better grass?
Quality. You know, a lot the other turf growers that we know, that's all they're doing, and they don't have a rotation. And you know, we use a rotation, and it helps clean up the soil, helps clean the foreign grasses out of there. We think it's the quality that gives us market share. Quality
and customer service. Yeah, well, we're, you know, when contractors want their sod there at 7 a.m, you know, it's a perishable product, and our guys will come in early and get it there. Our competitors won't always do that. So a little bit of both.
I laid sod when I was a kid, so I knew a lot of the sod guys around here, and I'd never heard of any of them doing a rotation. So is that?
Yeah,
you're one of the few probably up there. Is that?
Yeah, well, we probably have the largest acreage under cultivation of any of the sod farms, you know, and so and you know, this pocket of muck that we're next to, we grow onions on the deepest muck, but the shallower muck, the older muck that's become shallow, that makes great turf grass production. So we like that. It grows fast, and
very high organic matter, grows fast, no rocks.
Yeah,
makes it's nice for growing grass for sure.
What will you rotate it with, the sod?
Corn or
really? Wow.
Wheat,
yeah, cool.
Huh. We also have a soccer park. That's we partnered up with the local. We have a city of about 20,000 5 miles from us, and the community was short of playing fields, and we have some sod fields close to town, and partnered up with them, and now we have a soccer park that has 12 full-size soccer fields, and we also, not only is it used for the community during the summer, but we draw quite a few out-of-town tournaments from
Multi-state tournaments.
all over the Northeast region will come to, because there's 12 full-size fields on a pocket of muckland. It's perfectly flat, soft, really high quality playing fields. So
Community's got to love that. Yeah, that's great for the kids.
And it's a feel-good project, we don't make a lot of money on it, but it makes you feel good.
Exactly. Yeah, those are good to do for sure.
So what's this commodity business going to do here? What do you see? The world stocks are fairly tight, but input costs are climbing. So what are we going to see in this commodity business?
Yeah, it feels like I'm with you. The input costs are definitely going to alter you would think, some global acres. It's hard for me to believe that they're going to roll out as much corn as you might think in South America. I think they got to make some switches to beans or maybe some wheat in some areas, and hope to get good weather. I think you get a weather hiccup anywhere, we probably post another leg higher. If we don't, though, I guess, you're going to have a tough time getting the funds on board to really, we need the funds to drive prices higher. And if you got the dollar strong and fear of a global recession, it's tough to get them really rolled up without a serious supply side worry. So that's why I said it's probably going to take a pretty big weather scare in South America or here next spring to give us that other leg. We probably chop sideways to lower, I suspect, maybe until then. But we got to get that weather. There's got to be a weather card come into the mix, or else it's probably tough to see a major, at least in my opinion. Just with China, seems like China wants to buy less and less from the U.S. I mean, I know they have to be a buyer right here, but it seems like they're trying to do less and less, whether it's in all the commodities. And I guess we'll see what Russia has up their sleeve and how China plays the cards with Taiwan. It seems to be a lot of geopolitical, mess in the mix as well here. So I think that's, prices are high, but like you said, it's tough to hedge when you're up here with looking at the input costs like everyone is.
You hearing anything about fertilizer falling off? There's rumors about fertilizer prices maybe tailing off, or are you buying fertilizer now?
Yeah, we've heard some things that we may, taper back some. I think that could be obviously the case, especially if something. It's tough for me to say that it's going to improve a great deal when you have Europe, who was a big exporter, now an importer of fertilizer and inputs. And, I think until that situation changes within Ukraine and Russia, which I don't know if it's going to change anytime soon, especially with the sanctions, and China's tightened down their exporting of any type of, a lot of inputs. So I think we're going to remain tight. I don't think we're going to be out of supply anywhere. It doesn't feel like, or anything like that. You do have some rail issues or shortage concerns that could limit transportation in some places. But yeah, I think any breaks probably have to be buying opportunities in input side of things. Same that we were saying with diesel fuel, a month or two ago, we were talking about buying some diesel just on the break there that summer. And hell, here we go. I mean, it's tight up in your area, isn't it? Diesel pretty tight.
Very much. Yeah.
I've heard that. Nuts. It's crazy to think where we were at and now here we are here. So I don't know.
I don't worry about the river and getting fertilizer up the river.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. And the problem is a lot of the fertilizer input, a lot of the fertilizer companies, especially some of the smaller ag retailers, they're not inventorying anything like they used to inventory. Now they act more like a bank. I mean, they got a lot of lines of credit out to people, and they just don't inventory near as much. So you could have some spot shortages, I think, for sure, if you get a rail strikes or barge problems on the rivers or things of that nature. So yeah, it seems like you got to be buying.
How does the dairy helping you guys with fertilizer stuff right now? Quite a bit, or?
Yeah, well, we wish we had more manure. We told a neighboring dairy farmer this week to feel free to. If he had to get rid of some nutrients nearby, we'd take them. So
So do you guys own any of those at your operation, or are those someone else owns those and you guys are, it's just your facilities?
It's just our facilities, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a feedlot. It's a feedlot
Okay,
for dairy heifers.
We have what, we have 4 or 5 customers in there, dairy farms.
You know, we have a yardage, and then yardage plus feed, you know, and so.
And do you pump the manure, liquefy it and pump it to the fields, or is that how you?
Yeah.
We do both. We pump it underground and put it on trucks too, a little of both.
Yeah, we've had some operations around here that, yeah, that's a big help for them and a big windfall. They've been close to dairies or have a dairy of their own, things of that nature. So yeah,
so are you charging those people like per cow or per
Per-
month basis, or?
Per day, so
Per-
per head per day, yeah. So there's a daily board charge, and then we calculate we put all the feed costs into a spreadsheet and divide it over the number of head, and come up every month, come up with a different price based on the price of feed.
So why are most of these people outsourcing to you guys? Are they just out of room at their place, or?
Yeah, they're trying to utilize all their land base and all their barn space with their dairy cows, and they, outsource their young stock.
Part of it is, with CAFO, you need to have enough land for nutrient management, if you have a CAFO permit. And so, it's one way that they can export nutrients off their own farm by shipping their animals up here. That saves their land base for nutrients from milk cows. So.
And feed.
Yeah.
now, some of the dairy feedlots that we deal with in Kansas or out in Western Kansas, I think they were feeding for some farms in Wisconsin and even some in Germany. Do you guys get anything from far away, or is it mostly?
There's enough dairy cows in New York.
True. Yeah. What do you guys? A lot of DDGs, a lot of meal. What do you feed? Everything.
Corn silage and haylage.
A lot of haylage.
And distillers. We've got an ethanol plant nearby. A lot of our corn goes there, and get distillers back out of there.
Yeah.
Are you guys just using your corn and stuff to feed all the cows, or?
Yep.
Yeah.
And haylage, we grow a fair amount of alfalfa and put that through the heifers too.
What do you take them up to a certain weight, or do they keep them with you for a certain?
We breed them here.
Yeah, we take them weaned, and they're usually here for 20, 22 months, and we breed them, and
Oh, okay.
they're ready to fresh and send them home.
Yeah. Perfect.
So, Craig, whose idea was it to really start expanding the crop side of the business? Was that your idea or your dad's?
When we were milking a lot of cows, and Dad was always a dairyman. And when the dairy herd buyout came along, we had built our own parlor with some used equipment, and we had cows coming out of our ears. We had some heifers in rented facilities, so we didn't have a big capital investment per cow. So I thought it made sense that we bid this dairy herd buyout. And Dad was, I think, pretty reluctant, because that would mean a radical change. And I said, well, let's just bid high enough that we won't get taken. And there's always a price. And so we put in a fairly high bid. But once you bid it, you sign the contract, and they just started with the cheapest bids and went up until they got the volume of dairy out of production that they wanted. So once we signed the contract, we just waited, and they got up to our bid. We were surprised. I think my dad was very surprised, but I saw it as an opportunity. It was a big chunk of money, and we paid down debt and moved on. And I'm glad we did it. But it's sort of when my dad retired. You know?
There was a couple other times though that Craig brought in a non-family partner back in the mid 90s that and at that point there was a couple pretty significant acreage expansions. One ended up being a couple thousand acre farm 45 miles away from here, which was a big undertaking. And then actually also expanded and grew 1,000 acres of cabbage in Florida for 6 or 8 years. So they weren't certainly not risk averse, or certainly not afraid to take chances by any stretch.
You know, on paper, it looked like we could grow cabbage here in the summer and then load up the transplanter and the sprayers and rent some duplexes down there for our boys and go down and grow cabbage in the winter. And we found a farm. He was growing potatoes and sweet corn. And cabbage was a good rotation because we could grow cabbage in the heart of the winter in South Florida, where they
Okeechobee.
yeah, they're a little iffy for the potatoes and corn, sweet corn, right in the middle of the winter. So we rented that 1,000 acres down there and grew cabbage for a while. You know, it got old, and we were turning a lot of money, but the bottom line, we didn't think the bottom line justified the stretch.
The season started to overlap a little bit too much when they're still down there harvesting. We really needed to get back here and get some of the equipment in the boys' home to start planting and vice versa. So you thought the seasons, you know, would work well, and then they started to overlap, and everyone got stretched pretty thin, and it was a lot of work for, you know, never to lose money, but it wasn't the juice wasn't worth the squeeze.
I think that's why I lost the partner, you know, the partner that was my succession plan. I didn't know what Christian was going to do. And so I had an employee that I had a lot of potential. So we gave him a stake, you know, and I think that Florida farming sort of burned him out, you know. It was tough on all of us.
Oh, yeah. It all sounds good when you say it real fast, right? In there and start going. Oh, boy.
It worked well on paper.
I always say that. That's all the capital call checks and all the bad, you know, I tell my wife all the time, just a learning experience. And we've had a lot of learning experiences through the years. I'll tell you that for sure. So
Yeah.
I always tell Jordan, my thing is, I always say with everything that everyone kind of overlooks the art side of things. You know, I think there's art and science involved in everything, whether it's hitting a baseball or, you know, whatever it may be. I mean, you can't just pop a videotape in and be, oh yeah, hell, I can go out and do that.
Yep.
We do that a lot of times with our investments too, whether it's our farms we've invested in South America or farms in other places, or different types of business ideas or thoughts. Man, it looks great on paper. Science side looks great. It looks like we can do it. And then once we get in there, it's like, oh my goodness.
But it's all learning, you know, and it's all learning, and that's, you know, and it's got to be fun.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. You're right there. So, any other interesting businesses that you've tried and haven't been as planned, or we have a ton. So it's like I don't know. We always talk to every good business entrepreneur group. Seems like they've done it. Like you guys, you're doing all kinds of different things. You know, got some soccer fields over here. You got turf farms. You got a wide variety of crops. You're doing
We partnered with a Canadian veal company for 8 years and built a building with them and got into partnership in the veal business for eight years as well.
It was during the mad cow thing, and this Canadian outfit, you know, they had a big veal market in New York City, of course. And when the border was shut to cattle because of the mad cow, they were looking for production of veal down here in New York. And you know, we had a pretty good we had a CAFO, and we were already picking up female calves on dairy farms. So it looked like we could pick up the male calves too, the bull calves too. And so we used our labor in the winter to help them build the barn. And we were in a joint deal with them in the veal business. But you know, they were vertically integrated, and we were only partners in one part of it, and that didn't make for a long-term relationship. So.
And then the veal industry kind of fell on its face. I mean, it was on the, you know, it was on its way down anyway, and then COVID kind of put the nail in the coffin on the veal industry, really. I mean, it was starting to struggle anyway. I mean, the markets were dwindling, and then, you know, then all of a sudden you shut every restaurant in the world off for a year, and it just kind of, that ended it.
So that facility is empty and for sale if you're interested.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. You sound like us, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. What I got one for you. Jordan's he's getting engaged, you know, he got engaged, he's gonna get married. What's worldly wisdom on the work-life balance? As you can imagine, our work-life balance here with my wife, it's pretty not a lot of balance through the years. We're always doing, you know, we're in so many different things and so many different I guess ventures. It's tough to get a ton of balance, but how have you guys done it through the years?
You know, when I was in graduate school, I had decided that when I was decided to come back and farm, I had been working on a PhD in Minnesota. And when I decided to come back and farm, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to spend 10% of my time on some avocation other than farming, other than the core business, to diversify my life and have other interests. And it, you know, I didn't know what it was going to be. It ended up sort of being public service type of thing. And so I, you know, sit on a bank board and county legislature and Cornell trustee, that kind of stuff. And Christian's doing the same kind of stuff. You know, he's got involved in local politics, and you know, sat on a hospital board and those kind of things. I think it, you know, it helps.
It helps make a lot of connections and have perspective outside of the farm, for sure. In terms of the work-life balance, it doesn't help that at all. So, I mean, it feels like every year, I mean, I have a 13, 10, and 8-year-old besides, and then now doing county legislature as well. It's probably that's probably a 10 to 15 hour a week commitment besides the farm. So right now I would say that's a bad question for me. I feel like it will get better. I guess it's just that phase of my life where kind of everything's happening at once, but you know, you need to also experience that heavy load. Then in the long run, you'll have that perspective and have that much more appreciation when you do have more of it, I guess.
Yeah, take care of her. Take care of her.
Yeah, my wife always says, yeah, you said you said it was going to slow down and change, and it really slowed down and changed a whole lot. So I don't know.
How are you doing with that, Jordan?
Yeah.
It's I guess we're just getting started over here. So
He's taking heat. He's taking heat. Don't let him lie. They're like, my goodness, do we always have to be working? But I don't know. You know, I sat there, Craig, we came from no money. My folks didn't really have any money. My wife's folks didn't. And all they did was work. I mean, and my parents would wake me up super early and have to work and help my dad. And we didn't know anything any there. It's just, and it's hard when you don't know anything any different. I tell everyone, like, you know, it's like you just can't keep the oars in the boat when you go canoeing. I mean, we just don't know how to sit and do nothing. We'll sit here on the weekends, my wife and I, just like looking at each other, and then I'll go out and get some harebrained. You know, I'm buying a veal, getting in the veal business or something crazy. So it's like, we got to slow it down. We got to figure out how to do
our biggest weakness is definitely downtime, I think.
Yeah. When we get in downtime, or if I go on vacation, the kids and the workers be like, oh gosh, he's going to come back with 600 new ideas, and here we go again. So I don't know. I guess we'll just
Well, that's why you go to, you know, your event like FarmCon and our top producers or those kind of meetings, you know. They're good to talk to other guys and know what's going on and, you know, always come back with good ideas from those events. Congratulate you guys for that FarmCon thing. We both had conflicts, but we're definitely interested in that kind of event. So.
Oh yeah, that's and Jordan and I have committed to doing that. We need to do that again, Jordan, this year. We haven't set our date up, but we usually go 2 or 3 times. We try to go at least a couple times to conferences completely outside our comfort zone, like you guys are staying with your legislative time spent with the community and things like that. We try and go to something completely outside, just to meet new content, just think and look at things a little differently, and then you maybe take their ideas and then we can apply it into our ag businesses. But you know, I think that helps us a lot, don't you, Joe?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we don't try to, but we just get narrow-minded in a sense, just talking to farmers and people in the ag industry all the time and same old, and then kind of get a different view of looking at things, just looking inside to somebody else's business and some of the stuff they're applying, not in agriculture at all, or maybe taking those ideas and applying them to our business. So helps a ton with like new tech companies, stuff like that, doing different pay models and all that kind of stuff. Like, wonder if this could work here or here. And
yeah,
it's hard as business owners not to get trapped into better sameness. I had a few buddies that were big time CEOs, and you know, they would just be like, your business is always going to try and pull you toward better sameness, and better sameness a lot of times is, you know, it can be a tricky little deal where you starts to squeeze gross and squeeze profits and margins, and you know, better sameness is tough. So that's why we say we got to try and get outside of our own space to take a look a little differently. So I'm sure you guys see that. That's why it's nice to talk to you guys up in New York. We're hearing a lot of things that we don't normally hear. So
what about you guys mentioned earlier how you bought the turf business, you bought that onion farm, and then those guys came and worked for you after once you bought it. How was that dynamic? Was that something tricky you had to deal with, or were they wanting to work for you, or kind of going to blow?
You know, on the turf farm, we actually made the deal on the farm before we knew we were going to be in the turf business. We sort of made the deal and then got to thinking about it and asked the father, what are you going to do with the equipment? And I said, well, I'm going to sell it. And out walking the farm and walking over all this nice grass, and just decided to, you know, make a deal to buy the equipment too. And then transitioning, you know, I asked what are the boys going to do? Well, they don't really know. So we gave them a pretty good contract to stay with us for a couple of years to make sure that we could transition the business. The father retired, but you know, I think that helped us transition customers, you know, because they knew the salesman, and you know, we learned from them. That was that.
And I'm sure for those guys too, they kind of, you know, at least they had a way to transition out of being, you know, under their management of their father and having a, you know, a different structure until they figured out what they wanted to do too.
Then with the one guy that was selling sod, he sold sod for us for, I don't know, 3-4 years, I think. And then he went to work for a fuel distributor, and we buy fuel from him now. So,
oh,
you know,
Yeah, I need a transport load of propane. I just texted him about 2 hours ago.
perfect.
So is there any crops you guys went into that you were just completely blinded on, just like, hey, let's just start growing some spinach, or let's start growing these peas, and you had just no guidance on?
yeah. Well, when we started growing tomatoes, we had never been in a tomato field, and this crew of this family of Mexicans pulled in the yard, heard we were going to grow tomatoes, And they said, "You want some help?" And I said, "Sure." And they basically taught us how to grow tomatoes. You know, so yeah.
And now some of those family members still work
Yes,
for
they're
us.
still here.
Oh, wow, good. Yeah.
We got into a deal growing green roofs. You know.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
You know.
A French company.
Yeah, you know how they have living roofs on some of these, you know, for LEED certification, you know, for sustainable building. Architects have this LEED LEED certification, and you get credits for having, you know,
A growing roof.
so a green roof. And there was a company in France that was looking to expand into North America. They had been in it for a while, and they showed up looking. Actually, they walked in the office. They said, "We're looking to buy a farm. We want to grow green roofs."
So the idea of the green roof is obviously it's aesthetically pleasing, but it's also stormwater management. So in a city, you know, it'll take the water, it'll hold the water up there, use the water from a rain event to actually grow the plants, and keeps all that water out of stormwater. It also, you know, obviously deflects the sunlight and the heat from an asphalt roof. So a city like Toronto was, it actually became a requirement for all new construction to have a green roof. So there's this French company that is looking to move into North America, and they kind of put a pin in the US, and they say, "Oh, well, there's Toronto, there's New York, there's Boston, there's Philly, there's, you know, Chicago, there's Pittsburgh." And it's like, if you put a pin on our farm, I don't know how many millions of people are within 500 miles a year, but it's, you know, if you had a center, it's a bunch. So they just kind of, and then they somehow heard about Cornell and his name, and then all of a sudden they showed up at the door and said, "You know, this is an area we want to buy a farm and start growing green roofs." And so, "Why do you want to buy? Just come over here and buy a farm. Just partner with us. We have land, we have labor, we have, why don't we work together on it?" So we started growing green roofs with them, and shipping and growing those all over. They ended up all over the US and Canada.
And Dallas and Miami and Washington DC.
Yeah.
They go on library. You know, you can't really afford to put them on a, you know, on a commercial building. It just doesn't pay you. You got to handle the snow load, but for, you know, libraries and universities and public buildings, you know, they want that LEED certification, and so
yeah, like one of the largest ones was in a parking garage in Montreal or something.
Yeah.
You know, those.
So we did that for, I don't know, a number of years. The company in France, I think they ran into some headwinds. They
didn't realize, I think they had a really a great high quality product, but very expensive. They had these patented trays. The trays lock together. You grow the meat, you put the growing medium on, you grow the plants in these trays, and then the trays lock together almost like a sod or whatever. So they're kind of pre-made, you know, trays that you would bring up to the top of the roof. They lock together, and then the water the tray itself is water storage, and then it uses that storage as well for the plants. And they had a really high quality product, but then they came to the US, and the US was just kind of getting into this, and they're like, wow, the US can be a very competitive market. I think they realized that, like, bang, all of a sudden you get these competitors in the US, and it just, you know, they're just amazed by the competitiveness of a new industry in the US, how quickly markets can form. And, you know, they were kind of blown away by that. It's just different than a French, you know, type of economy, right?
So we're not doing it anymore, but long story short, we did that for several years.
I learned something new every day. I never even heard of it. So I didn't know there were people that grew I've seen the green roofs, but I knew they grew them. And like you said, you guys partake.
How long does it take to grow one of those?
They use cuttings, there's sedums are the plants. So they're basically almost like mini cactus. They're very resilient. They don't require a lot of water. They can have, water storage for a long time, and they have very high tolerance to tough conditions.
But 3-4 months, you spread you take a mature
Cuttings.
tray of sedums, and they take a lawnmower and clip off the top, and then take those clippings, throw them on a new tray and water them. So in a matter of 4 months or something like that, you've got marketable trade.
Wow,
What were people paying for those?
Oh God,
crazy.
very expensive.
Very expensive.
And of course, the shipping is expensive too. So you put them on a truck, and it's
Very high end jobs. I mean, the building's got to be engineered to handle the weight. These are all.
Millions of dollars. Such
Yeah.
silly dollars.
Yeah, my daughter works for a fancy architect firm in New York, so I'm sure that they do.
Ask her
About it. Yeah,
She'll know exactly.
New York is a huge market, obviously.
Boy, crazy for sure. So, well, Jordan, what else we got? We're about wrapping up.
Yeah, I was gonna ask on Christian, why'd you decide to go work for Farm Credit out of college, not come back to the farm?
So I grew up here working on this farm, but it was actually always something that my parents, Craig and Mom, always kind of encouraged that, you're going to go off to school. I went to school at Cornell, went there for finance, and they always thought that it'd be a good idea to go off and work for somebody else and live somewhere else.
for a while.
Just,
We sort of had a 5-year minimum, that he had to do something else for at least 5 years. And it can't be flipping hamburgers. It's got to be a career. And we thought it would be good, to have that perspective. And also, you bring a son back into a business when you have an existing management team. And I think that he had more credibility with the rest of our management team, having worked someplace else rather than coming here right out of school.
So
less disruptive.
And Farm Credit, they do it's nice because you get to still be in the ag industry and to get the training of Farm Credit, and then to analyze all these businesses, their behaviors, good and bad, and the finances. Again, it's just a great perspective, great training, and living in a whole different area. I lived in New Jersey, where I went to Cornell. I had a bunch of buddies that were from New York and Philadelphia. So in my early 20s, I got to live between New York and Philadelphia and do what you're supposed to do in your early 20s. And not have, I actually played golf a lot and had weekends and holidays and all that kind of stuff, which was kind of great. So that was, and I got just a great perspective. And then when it was time to have a family, I didn't want to have it in New Jersey. So I spent 6 years down there, and then moved back in 2008. And it was,
perfect.
Wouldn't have changed it. Yeah.
I think you couldn't script it much better than that. So I like the thought of going out and getting some diversification and seeing some things from a different view, and come back home
For sure.
to the table. So it's great. Yeah,
So
congrats.
what's the I guess to end off, what's the farm look like moving forward, or are you starting to fully take over, Christian, or?
Yeah, he's already running the farm. I'm 72. And
He's retiring 5% a year. So, and that's how we also split up the
Right.
so every year he's, that's also how we are handling the equity at every year. So
no, I'm actually retiring by 10% a year. We're 50-50 management responsibility, right? And at 65, I said over 10 years, I'm going to retire by 10% a year. So so the first year I was then 45% of management and he was 55. And so every year it changed by
5%.
by 10% a year. So by the time I'm 75, I'm out. And I think the idea is that I've seen too many farms where an 80-year-old man was calling all the shots and his 60-year-old son was still taking orders from dad. And I said, that's not going to happen here. We're going to have there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel when he knows he doesn't have to put up with me anymore.
But I don't want him to retire. He still has played a huge, a massive role here. I still feel like I need a partner. I need someone to talk to every day about management issues. He's really the CFO role. He does all our monthly accounting, and he's still really kind of managing the office, so to speak. So I'm not necessarily ready for that either. So I think we got a few more years left in him, hopefully.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Cool.
sure.
I think that's all I had on my end.
Yeah, anything we didn't ask you that we should? Either one of you?
I don't know. Really, really appreciate what you guys are doing. Really enjoyed.
We read you every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
I appreciate you guys taking the time to give back. I love the transparency and openness, and we don't hear from a lot of folks up in your way. And even though you're Bills fans, we're gonna let that pass. And like I said, it can all be good.
Like you said, I think we're going to be doing this for a while, and there wouldn't be a better rival. I just think that the people are very alike, and you wouldn't have a better team.
Yeah, if we end up getting home field and you guys come to Kansas City, let us know.
Yeah, I got a couple places. You guys are more than welcome to stay at one of the places or do whatever. Yeah.
Well, you guys are coming here this year, so you let us know.
It looks like that.
Listen to it. I hear you, man. I hear you. So perfect. Yeah. If you get any crazy ideas or any ventures that we might need to partake in, hit us up. And be fun partners to have. So love to talk to you guys more.
Really good visiting.
Thank you. You guys have a good
guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.